I give you glory for all you've brought me through. And now I'm ready for whatever you want to do. I'm moving forward to follow after you. And now I'm ready for whatever you want to do. Your presence is an open door. We want you, Lord, like never before. Your presence is an open door. So come now, Lord, like never before. In every season, your grace has been enough. And I'm believing the best is yet to come. The cross before me, my hope on things above. And in you, Jesus, the best is yet to come. Your presence is an open door. We want you, Lord, like never before. Your presence is an open door. So come now, Lord, like never before. I know breakthrough is coming. By faith, I see a miracle. My God made me a promise and it won't stop now. I know breakthrough is coming. By faith, I see a miracle. My God made me a promise and it won't stop now. Put your hands together, let's sing. I know breakthrough is coming. By faith, I see a miracle. My God made me a promise and it won't stop now. Sing it one more time. I know breakthrough is coming. By faith, I see a miracle. My God made me a promise and it won't stop now. Your presence is an open door. We want you, Lord, like never before. Your presence is an open door. So come now, Lord, like never before. Amen. I know breakthrough is coming. By faith, I see a miracle. My God made me a promise and it won't stop now. declare that today. I know a breakthrough is coming. By faith, I see a miracle. My God made me a promise and it won't stop now. Your presence is an open door. We want you, Lord, like never before. Your presence is an open door. So come now, Lord, like never before. Amen. Give him praise.
On the fourth Wednesday of every month, CCC hosts Table to Table, an evening where we offer free, freezer-ready meals to anyone who needs one. The big reason we do this is because Jesus commanded us to love our neighbors. And what good is it to say we love Gatesville and let so many of our neighbors go hungry? Since we've been so blessed by God, it's our responsibility to be a blessing to those in need. There are many ways you can help with Table to Table. You can pick up a grocery bag. We have those in the lobby, and you can fill it with items listed on the bag and bring it back to CCC. You can swing by Info Central and sign up to make or distribute meals. You can even ask for a meal to be set aside so you can personally deliver it to someone who needs one, but isn't able to make it out during Table to Table. Whatever God's Spirit is leading you to do, our prayer is that you would listen and obey and be a part of Table to Table this month at CCC.
Back in the spring, I took my son into one of those big box stores, big box sports stores, I guess you could say, to buy him a new baseball glove for the upcoming season. And every glove he tried on was either too big or too small, yet Abel was still gravitated towards this one that was a little bit on the small side. And though I tried to tell him it was too small, he liked the way it looked. So as we entered into this father-son debate, one of the workers comes up and tells me, for $15, you can buy our protection plan. And if this glove gets damaged, or if he outgrows it, remember that word, it's important, just keep your receipt and proof that you bought this plan. And you can pick out another glove at the same value later. Now, I'm usually not one of those who buy into extra warranties and things like that, because to me, it feels like a gamble that I'll probably just lose money on. But something about the way this person told me if he outgrew it, Well, that made me spend the extra $15. Because here's the deal, I knew he was going to outgrow it. I just couldn't convince my son of that in the moment, in the middle of the store, so I thought, I'll just buy him this glove. He's happy today. Then in a few months, when he realizes it's too small, I can say, hey, what'd your dad tell you? Just another instance of where dad's always right. Told you so. Let's go get a new glove. And because of this glove protection plan that I bought, hey, I won't have to spend any more money. So just a few weeks back, it worked out exactly that way. It was turning into something so beautiful, except for that bit about the protection plan. You see, when I went back into the store with the glove and the documentation in hand, along with my son's hand, holding it up in the salesman's face, saying, look, doesn't fit him anymore. We'd like a new glove, please. This new salesman I hadn't met before, he just sort of looks kind of funny at me. And he says, all right, that'll be $49. And I said, well, wait just a minute. What about the $15 promise here that I bought into? And he said, well, that just covers defects, or if something goes wrong with the glove, if it falls apart or something like that. But we're not just going to go out and start giving out free gloves to kids every time they hit a growth spurt. I mean, I don't know who was working that day that you bought this, or what they told you. And of course, I stopped him right there. I reminded him that's exactly what someone had told me. And so maybe I'll just take the old glove in the parking lot and run it over a few times with my car so they'll honor their $15 faulty promise. I didn't say that last part because my son was with me, but I did think about it. Long story short, the guy knocks like $20 off the new glove because another coworker had falsely sold me on a promise that their company never promised to actually fulfill. But you know what? That kind of stuff happens. Not only in chain sporting goods stores, but it happens even in the church. I encounter people all the time who walk away from God, faith, the church. The word that's popular right now among many my age and younger is the word deconstruction. People are deconstructing their Christian faith all the time, and what they were told was true and good growing up in church. And I would venture to say that a majority of the time, its root comes from, it's because somewhere along the way, they felt deceived by folks who told them that God would do a bunch of things for them that God never promised to do in the first place. And when that didn't happen, they lost faith in God. I mean, think about this. How many of us have heard sermons or messages where pastors and Christians will invite non-Christians to consider Christianity because it'll make your life better, or it will, how do they say it, make you better at life? And perhaps you've been that Christian who has done so because, hey, you believe that too. And honestly, like for you, Christianity may have enriched or benefited your life in some way. Maybe you gained a moral compass, and that's a good thing. It's helped, get some of your priorities back in check. Maybe it's helped you kick some habits along the way. Your family or marriage, it might be stronger because of it. There may have been times you even prayed for specific things to get better. And you know what? Lo and behold, they did. However, for everyone who you can point to, when faith seemed to work for you, there's also someone who can point to times when faith did not seem to work. So let's say you prayed, you read your Bible, you went to church, you strived to do the right thing, and you still got sick. You still lost the job. You had that tragedy to deal with. And you kind of go, what about then? I thought if I had God in my life, things were supposed to get better. At least that's what some preacher or Sunday school teacher or author told us all along the way. Maybe even they would use a Bible verse here or there to back that claim up. And while there's several go-to verses that people like to use to do just that, perhaps the strongest proof text comes from quoting Jesus himself on the back end of John 10:10, when he says, I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. Now that's how the ESV, the English Standard Version, translates it. While the NIV puts it like this. Notice there. He says, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. Then you've got the New Living Translation, which I like to use sometimes, which says, my purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life. Now, we can quibble about differences in translation here, but who in their right mind doesn't want an abundant or full or rich and satisfying life? If that's what Jesus is for, then no wonder people say, sign me up. But the reason I got duped on that warranty baseball glove deal, I know I keep on harping about it, but it's because I just took the initial salesperson's word for it at face value. Did she mislead me by having me buy into a promise that her store never promised to fulfill? Yes, absolutely. But she also, to her credit, gave me a little book as I went to make the purchase that spelled out all the terms and conditions with contractually binding language from those who actually called the shots. And shame on me for not verifying that what she was promising me was also written in the book. You see, Christians are right to say that Jesus promised abundant life. But if we don't take careful notice of the book and look more closely at what Jesus meant by abundant life, then we can just assume and project that he means whatever we hope it means. And think about how this practically works itself out in your mind for a second. Say you're up for a promotion at work, and you have worked hard for that promotion. You're well qualified. You've kept your nose clean, whatever. But you get looked over for someone else who maybe in your right estimation is far less deserving. And you start to wonder, well, why did that person get rewarded over me? And if you start trying to think theologically about it, you might even wonder where God is in all this, or why he would allow that to happen. You try and follow Jesus, the other person, they might care less about him. So you wonder, well, why is he now getting a more rich and satisfying opportunity than me? And these questions can plague us anywhere from a day to a lifetime. And you can even take it into all these deep, unanswerable dilemmas and questions that David was even raising last week in his sermon. Just think about all the possibilities. Why do some of the sweetest kids get sick and get taken too soon, while some of the, meanest folks you meet go on long beyond their expiration date? I thought Jesus promised life to the full. Where is this abundant life at when I feel like I'm running on empty? So what's happening here? Is Jesus not keeping his promise to us? Or have we misheard his promise because we haven't taken time to read the book? did Jesus really promise a life full of things going our way? Or is that something we've bought into and sold off to others that he never promised? When you go back and start to read the whole book of John, is really kind of interesting, the stories that the gospel writer places around John 10. Before John 10, you think about this as common sense, it's John 9 that begins by telling us of an encounter Jesus had with a man who had been blind from birth, which means that not only could the man not see physically, in that world, he was totally dependent on the mercy and goodwill of others to survive. And to make matters worse, he's got to deal with people's stupid assumptions, like him or his parents must have done something really bad for him to have this disability, which John shows being perpetuated even in the thoughts of the disciples. Look at verse 2. Rabbi, his disciples ask him, why was this man born blind? Was it because of his own sins or his parents' sins? But Jesus shuts down that theory real quick in verse 3 by saying, it was not because of his sins or his parents' sins, Jesus answered. This happened so the power of God could be seen in him. To which they were all probably scratching their head on that power of God bit until Jesus demonstrated the power of God by basically, I'm going to just sum this up by making mud pies to rub in the blind man's eye to give him sight. And you think about that, just as God formed man out of the dirt at creation, Jesus here, the Son of God, forms and fashions this man's eyes to do what they were intended and designed to do. You think when Jesus gave sight to that blind man that his life became a little more satisfying and full and abundant? Well, what about a little over there in John chapter 10, thereafter John chapter 11? We're told about Jesus' friend Lazarus, who actually dies. And Jesus is late to the funeral, and therefore he gets an earful from Lazarus' sisters and their grief, particularly Martha. While after some back and forth on the topic of the resurrection, we find that Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead. And I think Lazarus would probably agree with the blind man that Jesus can raise your life up to something it wasn't before. Yet while he provided a path to abundance that neither of those men knew before, get this, their lives in some ways were just as complicated, if not more. Why? Because sometime after Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, John goes on to tell us that people wanted to kill him and see him dead again. A lot of people overlook this little detail, but check out John chapter 12, verses 9 and 11. It says, when all the people heard of Jesus' arrival, and he's talking about there in the town of Bethany, they flocked to see him and also to see Lazarus, the man Jesus had raised from the dead. Then the leading priests decided to kill Lazarus too, for it was because of him that many of the people had deserted them, and they believed in Jesus. So remember, these leading priests of Jesus' day think Jesus is a heretical blasphemer, because in their mind, God is on high and in heaven. He certainly can't be some dude from Nazareth down here hanging out with mere mortals and sinners. And these guys are smart and they're observant. They're not dummies. So when they hear of Jesus' miracles and the message that accompanied each one, they go, well, who does Jesus think he is? God or something? That's blasphemous. And then people like Lazarus, who experience all this stuff and see it, a lot of them think that Jesus is God too. And they're crazy and they need to be put out as well. So they set out to silence Jesus and the proof that he performed in people to show that he is something greater. That's why they wanted to kill Lazarus, following John chapter 11. That's why when you go back to John chapter 9, the first 7 verses are about how a man born blind could one day see again, while a bulk of that remaining 42 verse chapter is the leading priest also there interrogating the man with how he got his sight back and cutting down his character and his witness and trying to intimidate him into denouncing Jesus, who just gave him sight. So again, because of Jesus, both the blind man and Lazarus have a satisfying, full, abundant life, but it's also their connection to Jesus that brings about a whole new set of challenges. For while Jesus is making all things new, there are people in this world wanting to keep all things old and doomed, which is the reason for Jesus referencing Ezekiel 34 and saying all that he does there in John chapter 10 about how he is the good shepherd who leads the sheep to life, as opposed to those leading priests I just mentioned who were posing as shepherds only to rob and steal from the sheep what the good shepherd had come to give. And when you understand that, then the rest of John 10:10 starts to make a lot more sense. When Jesus says, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy, but I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. Which, by the way, here, I just want to point this out too. The thief here is not Satan, like some suggest when they lift all this from its surrounding context. Jesus is saying the thief here are those leading priests. It's actually people who so often come to kill and steal and destroy the things in life that Jesus has come to offer. We can do Satan's job for him sometimes just fine. Now, being a literal under-shepherd myself, that's what a pastor is after all, who wants to lead like Jesus and point people to Jesus and not away from him, and away from the life that he offers, like those false prophets and shepherds did in John. Allow me to kind of highlight a few specific things from Jesus himself on what he is offering when he offers us life to the fullest. Because if we just think back to where we started earlier, again, our dilemma and trouble so often rises when things in life don't go our way. And we wonder why Jesus maybe isn't stepping in like we thought he should if he promised abundant life. Where is God when I need him most? You might have wondered that yourself. What good is it? Or what difference does it make if we serve Jesus or not? Wicked people sometimes seem to get along just fine. Why bother, some might ask, if God isn't going to do what I need him to do? And while it's tempting to be like that sales associate I mentioned earlier who just told me at first what I wanted to hear to get the sale, I've come to tell you some things that Jesus has actually promised to deliver on when he comes offering us abundant life. And to do this in the amount of time I have left, I'm going to show you these things from where we started, or actually just from the book of John. I'm just going to point you to different places in the book of John. And if you're a note taker, we'll put the reference up here on the screen for you. So you can go and you maybe check them out later and in more depth on your own. So, if Jesus isn't promising us and delivering on the life we hope for, again, what is he promising? So I'm going to just list these 7 things from John's gospel that he specifically, that he calls signs. And these particular 7 signs or miracles are strategically placed throughout the Gospel of John to try and help us see and come to actually believe with all of our being that Jesus is the Son of God. And by the way, you don't have to be a genius to know that's why John is writing all this. Because in John chapter 20, verses 30 and 31, he tips his hand here and just admits to us that, look there, Jesus performed many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in this book. But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. All right, so now if you read John's intro to Jesus in John 1, you can tell he already believes that Jesus is God. You think about that. I think we did a series on this one time at Christmas. Jesus, in John's mind, he's the Word in the beginning. He's the author and the giver of life. That's an important word here. When you think about abundant life, he is the light in the darkness. But these 7 signs, or miracles with the message, as I've heard some commentators put it, help point us to Jesus so that we might believe in him in this same way too. And I just so happen to think that these also provide just a few of the ways a life lived with and for Jesus is a better, more abundant way to live. Or to borrow Jesus' language in John 15, if you live a life that abides in Jesus, you will eventually find these following realities will come to fruition in your own life simply because you believe and abide in Christ. So number 1 here, I would say this: Jesus offers a life that overcomes shame. And I say this based on the first of the signs that Jesus performs in John 2. Many of you know the story as Jesus' first miracle, where he turned water into wine while attending a wedding at Cana. Now, while I can understand how that story gets used as a proof text to provide Christians a license to drink alcohol, that's not John's main reason for telling us about this. Plus, that application would probably make John's original audience just sort of scratch their head on 2 counts. 1, because the issue to them would not have been whether or not to have wine at a wedding. For them, it would have been it wouldn't have been much of a wedding without wine. But 2, the bigger cultural tension they'd feel when they would read this story and hear it in their day is the angst for the host family that you would actually run out of wine for such an event. Like when you are marrying off your next of kin in that world, inviting all the people who were instrumental in the formation of these newlyweds to come and celebrate at your place, and you invite them all to your town, all just to run out of wine, that is a shameful thing. And shame among Easterners in the ancient world can be good or bad. But this is not a good shame. So when Jesus quietly steps in there in the back to change the water to wine, he not only covers that family's shame, he totally reverses their position from a place of shame to a place of honor. When the master of the feast takes a sip of the stuff and says, "Wow, this is the best wine I've had. Normally by this time, in the party, people are starting to water down the wine to make it last a little longer. They've saved the best for last. And so I just ask you, are there areas of your life where you can't seem to overcome shame? It's a problem for humanity going all the way back to Adam and Eve in the garden. Guess what? Life that abides in Jesus can overcome shame. Secondly here, Jesus offers a life that overcomes doubt. Some will say, well, I don't know if I have enough faith to believe in all this Jesus stuff. Well, a man also in Cana had a son who was sick and on the very brink of death. And Jesus knew the man did not and would not believe in him without seeing some sign or miracle. What the man did not know, though, was that as he was speaking to Jesus, Jesus was already healing his child. After all, God's not limited by distance or time to work. So it must have been quite a surprise to return home and find his son well. And when doing a little bit of math later and thinking a little more deeply, the man realized that this blessing, this miracle, had come from none other than Jesus, the moment Jesus told him, "Your son will live." And for those of you who doubt, let me challenge you to take Jesus at his word and then go on about your way and see if he doesn't keep his word. Thirdly, I wonder if anyone is feeling helpless over some situation or condition today. Psalm 46:1 says, "God is our refuge and strength and very present help in trouble." And that's also exactly who Jesus revealed himself to be to a man who had laid beside the pool of Bethsaida for he'd been totally paralyzed for 38 years. Nothing he could do to help himself. And Jesus came along to heal him in his own helplessness. And there's still a variety of ways Jesus offers us a life that overcomes our helplessness when you look at John 5. Jesus also offers a way and a life that satisfies our needs. For who can forget that time Jesus met the needs of 5,000 hungry people by miraculously multiplying one boy's 5 loaves and 2 fish to the masses. By the way, that's why things like our responsiveness to God's grace in terms of generosity and in ministry initiatives like Table to Table is so important, because felt needs can continue to be met when Jesus is glorified and multiplied in us. Just a few passages later, in John chapter 6, verses 16 through 21, we find another story of Jesus' disciples on the sea in a dark storm. And they had been rowing against the waves for nearly 3 to 4 miles, and as they grew more and weak and helpless feeling, they saw Jesus walking on the sea over the waves to get into the boat with them. And this shows Jesus offering a life that overcomes desperation. If some of you feel exhausted and desperate right now over the rising waters in your life, have you considered what getting in the same boat with Jesus might look like and how it could change things around? And next to last is John 9, one of those stories I mentioned earlier, where Jesus opened the eyes of a man born blind. And it's important that you remember he was born blind, because what becomes apparent later in the story is that Jesus' bigger mission is to heal us all, and that man, of our spiritual blindness. Let me put it this way. Jesus offers a life that overcomes innate darkness. In Psalm 51:5. David prays this line to God where he says, "Surely I was sinful at birth." And so many of us can identify with that line and probably know what he means when he says it. There are things in our life that we wish weren't there. Strongholds that bind us, but they've always been there as long as we can remember. It's just always been a struggle, and maybe a struggle we've just come to accept. Maybe you're a liar. Maybe you're selfish. Maybe you're greedy. That's just sort of your MO. You can't help it. You don't want to be, but that's just the way you are. And you don't know why you are that way. No one sat you down and taught you to be a liar or greedy or self-centered. It just came naturally. And it's so common in your life, it's even hard to see that in yourself oftentimes, or even how it affects other people. Folks will even apply this to their own sexual sin and turn it into their identity today. Well, my daddy was a womanizer, and I guess the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. I can't help it, just like girls. Or I don't want to be attracted to the same sex because it's not easy to be gay in Texas. But I've just always dealt with this. I was born this way. And look, I'm not here to refute that. Maybe you were. I don't think the thought of innate, inborn sinful tendencies would surprise David. But Jesus comes along and says, I come offering a life and a way and a truth and a power that overcomes the most innately dark parts of your heart and your life and your mind if you will simply believe and abide in me. Finally, you'll remember how I mentioned the story of Lazarus in John 11 earlier, which shows us in part, the final thing here I want you to see, that Jesus offers a life that overcomes death. One of the most faith-forming, extraordinary experiences of my ministry has been those times where I have sat with older, mature followers of Jesus in their last and final days on earth, and to witness the confident hope they hold in the valley of the shadow of death because they know the Good Shepherd, Jesus. And because He lives, even though they will die, they know they will continue to live. And you can have that too. So I didn't list any cash, cars, money, or fame on this list. And you'll also find that none of these things necessarily just take pain and complications and questions off the table. But I wonder who desires to live a life with these 7 things as a reality. Here's the secret that is often overlooked, but John is shouting it from the rooftops. As great as all these miracles and signs are, they are only there to point to the one who is greater. Just like when you're on a long trip, it might be good and encouraging to see a sign that your destination is 10 miles out. But the main point of interest should be arriving at the destination itself. So what good is it to simply want to break from the storm when you know more storms will eventually come? Or to have a little more wine when you know it'll eventually run empty again? To be healed of one thing only to get sick or die from something later again? What I'm saying, and what I think John is beckoning us to do today, is not just come to Jesus and look at Him for only your temporary lives, your temporary needs, and then move on. The point is to come to Jesus, for He is the bread of life where you'll find real satisfaction. He's the great physician who can truly restore and heal the places you never thought were possible. He is the resurrection and the life that you and I so desperately need for now and forever. And when you believe this, then you can really experience the full, abundant life that Jesus intended for you to have. And look, if you don't believe that's what Jesus promised for you, don't take a salesman's sales pitch here or even a pastor's word for it. Look at the lengths that Jesus promised to go for you to have this abundant life, which he says in verse 11, just after John 10:10. He says, I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. Do you believe Jesus is who he says he is here, and that he kept his promise in laying down his life for you? And if so, then why not follow his lead and trust him for who he says he is and do whatever he asks?
You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Just sing that out, waymaker. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you. I worship you. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Oh, you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 Even when I can see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop. You never stop. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. You never stop. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop. You never stop working. You never stop. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. stop, you never stop working, you never stop, 'cause you are a way maker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Oh, you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 Sing it one more time. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise oh, you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Amen. Give him praise.
Well, thank you so much for joining us online. Let us know if we can pray for you or minister to you in any specific way by simply direct messaging us. We'll try to respond in a timely manner. And I also want to wish you a happy 4th, a happy Independence Day. And as blessed as we are to have the freedom we do in this country that we get to temporarily live in, we who are living life with Christ, that abundant life we've been talking about, are even more free as God's citizens. So with that said, may you receive this blessing before you log off today. As you go in Christ, who provides freedom from shame, freedom from sin, freedom from selfishness, and freedom from pride, freedom to love and serve, freedom from death and pain, freedom to embrace life, and to announce that life and that freedom for the sake of all people and for the glory of God. And let God's people say,